And we are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy. And behind me, we're joined by,
Hey,
hey,
hi
there's
Spot.
the doctor. And that's not Spot, but he looks like Spot.
He
Um,
does.
that's Arthur.
Hi Arthur.
Yeah, I guess he wanted to be on TV. Oh,
All right.
he's giving us like this weird mean look.
Well, I think Arthur knows what we're going to talk about.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So today on Starfleet Boy, we're going to have a casual and informal discussion about the Star Trek Discovery trailer that just dropped. What day was that? Wednesday?
Wednesday, I think it was, right?
Was
It
it
was
Tuesday or
during,
was it Wednesday?
maybe it was, no, because we were going to discuss it yesterday, right?
I
No,
don't
the day
know.
before yesterday we were going to discuss it. So maybe
So it
it
was
was, it was,
Wednesday.
it was Wednesday. I was this close to recording a late night edition for me, but I couldn't stay awake.
That's all right. I mean, we don't want to have reactions. Anyways, we want to simmer and sit on things for a while, right? Like that's a
Mhm.
discussion rather than a
Right.
reaction.
Yeah, we've had a few days. We've had like a couple days to process it.
Um, shall I go first?
Well,
Or would
yeah, go
you
ahead.
want to just jump?
We actually haven't really discussed it, so I want to know what did you think?
So my initial reaction to it, to talk about our reactions, um, my initial reaction was I was not impressed, and I'm still not impressed now. But what I will say is that I haven't given up on Star Trek Discovery. I don't know if I'll acknowledge that it's a Star Trek show as we've discussed before, but the actors definitely intrigue me immensely. So I guess that's kind of like the final hope for me as a potential fan of Star Trek Discovery is that maybe the performances are just gonna like completely erase all the things that are troubling me
And what
about
kind of things trouble you from the
the
trailer,
show.
from the teaser rather? I guess it's a
Well,
teaser.
it just really boils down to this, like,
Hmm.
and we can go into detail about some of the things that we saw in the trailer, but it just it's a personal thing. It's nothing against the people working on this, or even there's a I understand there's a split now. Like, apparently, Star Trek is the most controversial thing in the world after President Trump and his
Real,
administration.
I wasn't aware of this. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
apparently, it's like the internet is completely torn, and so are Star Trek fans. And I think that's the to me the bottom line is that, like, the imagery that I was being shown was actually really compelling and exciting, but it just irks me that it's 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. It's like, is nothing sacred? Can you everything looks so great, just set it in the fucking future. Sorry for swearing. Just set it in
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
future. If
I
it's
agree with
80
you.
years after Star Trek the Next Generation, it's so plausible. Like, everything about it is already just plausible. You don't even need Sarek. You can just have any Vulcan. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just,
Hmm.
I don't know. That's it. To me, the most troubling thing is that they're spending all this money. They're like revising Star Trek. They're making these cool ships. They're making these cool new Klingons and everything. The production value is so high, and the special effects are supposed to be so great, and yet it's kind of a kick in the face to all that is the original series. It's just kind of like, to me, it's like it like says, is the intention to just completely ignore, is it that you can't, I don't know, can you not control the original series, or do you want to erase it from the memories of fans, or is it just not marketable? And my gut tells me no. My gut tells me a lot of people would be interested in the original series as something to watch as a new Star Trek fan, and Discovery could be set in the future, and it would be just, I would have no problem with it. So that's what it all boils down to me for me, is just that, like, and I'll get into the details of it if you like, but mostly it's just the context, or the setting of the show is what bothers me the most. It just boils down to that.
Is it because for me, and I was just having this conversation with my brother, who came by to pick up his son. For me, I'm actually double dipping. I'm doing, obviously we're doing a rewatch of Next Generation, but on my own, I'm doing a rewatch of Enterprise because I have the Blu-ray set.
Mm-hmm.
So, the idea of doing a prequel series, obviously was done on Enterprise, and I have enormous respect for the show because I think they did it right. For me, Discovery, I don't know if this is the source of your emotional anguish over it, but I know for me, I just don't like the fact that we're supposed to watch this show and then make the leap that we go to the original show
10 years later,
and
continuity wise, yeah.
10 years later, and of course everything that has followed since. I think in terms of the look, in terms of the way that technology is presented, and the production design and the world and everything, and the design of the Klingons and all that stuff. With Enterprise, they I think it's almost like a period piece. They treated it in the sense that, okay, we're obviously making a modern show at that time. We want it to look good, but we also have to make it fit into a slot before the original series. So we have to see a progression. And one of the ways that Enterprise did that is that they presented a ship that looked very much like a submarine. The NX-01 was much smaller. People, you would have like these metal pylons that you have to walk under and stuff because it was a smaller ship. There's a quick shot of on the teaser of Discovery where you see the corridor, and the corridor looks rather large, looks rather wide, and it looks very much like the corridor that you see on the film Star Trek right now, the current J.J. Abrams verse or Kelvin verse or whatever.
I actually thought I know the corridor you're talking about, and I hate to interrupt you. I'm gonna pull a Kanye West here.
No, go ahead.
It looks like the same exact set from Battlestar Galactica. It's like they went to Vancouver. They were like, oh, look, there's a corridor sitting here. What was this used on before? Oh, it's Battlestar Galactica. So to me, it looked like the Battlestar
but it was rather
Galactica
large,
set.
wasn't it?
Just like the Galactica's corridor.
Right.
In fact, I'll pull it up while you're talking about it. Go on.
Right. And that I think that demonstrates to me a lack of on the part of the production of the producers to integrate this show into the look and feel of what's already happened. And would you just point it out?
But like the corridors on the Enterprise 1701 pre-refit original series are rather large. So,
but that's my point, is that to a subtle way that Enterprise, the show, made us feel like this is before the Enterprise, without giving us 1960s sets, production design, is little things like that. You know what I'm saying? You have to find a way to trick us into thinking this is set before the original series, even though we know it's not. You get me? Mm-hmm. There's certain things that you can't overcome. Obviously, there's static view screens on the original show, and you're not going to have that, and whatever. But what I saw in the teaser for Discovery was very much a universe that looks like what we see in the film Star Trek right now, and that looks more advanced than anything we've seen so far. I mean, there's a shot of the view screen, and I think it was my brother who pointed out to me that they're trying to evoke next generation. They're trying to get Next Generation fans excited with that line. What is it? We have in Next Generation, we have encountered the Borg, and we have encountered the Klingons, or whatever it is.
We've engaged the Klingons.
We've engaged the Klingons, and I'm like, that's oh, there we go. Excellent.
Well, so here's something that bothered me too. The Shanzhou, the fancy ship that we see in the show, there was this whole controversy where CBS and Paramount, both of them, if I'm not mistaken, basically just completely like, put the kibosh or kibosh, I don't know how to say that word, on this fan production called Axanar, right? What does that ship look like to you? To
It
me, it looks a lot
looks
like.
like they flip. Oh, go ahead.
Well, to me, it looks like a lot like the Shanzhou, the new. Maybe I can pull up a side by side for you guys. But to me, it's like here's this thing that they just kind of like this concept that they
Well, but wait
ended.
a minute. But that isn't the design of the Discovery based on designs from Star Trek: The Motion Picture?
The Discovery, but the ship you see in the trailer is the Shanzhou, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it. That's not the Discovery.
Oh, the one that goes through. Oh, that's not the Discovery.
Yeah, the coming through the clouds. It's the Shanzhou,
Okay.
and it's a here I'll show you what's online for that ship. Apparently, it looks like I guess no one's really.
But what's your caveat with that? You think they stole it from Exonar? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not stolen. I mean, it's obviously Axanar's design is based on things that are already kind of aesthetic that's already set by Star Trek. So in a way, Star Trek's not stealing from Axanar. But I just think it's kind of weird that like the two ships look so similar to me. Here, I'll show you the Shanzhou. Okay, so this is the best thing I could find right now, which is like the wireframe that they showed in the little teaser sizzle reel a while back. But if you look here, you have a saucer section that's like basically connected to there's that Enterprise NX-01 look, right? Then you have the pylons kind of swooping downwards, and then you have these rather unoriginal series looking nacelles. In fact, they look more like something you would expect to see in a show set past the Next Generation. Like they look, and again, this is a rendering that someone a fan rendering, so I don't believe the final film TV show version looks like this, but somewhat like that. Then you have this guy, and it has that same kind of swooping down pylons. What would have this ship is so cool looking. Why couldn't they just stick with the aesthetic? If you're gonna place a show 10 years before the original series takes place, why not just make it this ship?
Well, I think I think, and I know I mentioned this to you. I think it's on one of the episodes, or I may have done it in a phone conversation. But I firmly believe that this show, the reason they chose the setting, they're emphasizing. Notice the emphasis of the taglines. 10 years before Kirk, 10 years before Spock, 10 years before the Enterprise. They're evoking Kirk, Spock, and Enterprise, which is currently what's in the film series. I really think this show is trying to ride the coattails of the film series, and obviously all the lens flare, the whole half the teaser is just filled with lens flare, which is obviously a hallmark of J.J. Abrams and his two directorial outings with Star Trek. Oh, there we go. Oh, is that from Axanar?
That's from Axanar.
Very nice.
It's very, a beautiful. Very nice. But look at how you have the original series form factor, right? You have the TOS form factor, but just lit differently, and with computer generated effects, it has a whole different life to it. To me, that looks just as beautiful as what we were presented with in the Discovery trailer. Like, had you built a ship that looks like this and that just seemed more plausible to be taking place, I get it. Like they're rebooting Star Trek and the look and the feel. Okay.
Well, but they've already rebooted Star Trek. I think what they're doing is they're following the film reboot. If let me ask you, don't you think that teaser matches the movie more than it does anything else we've seen?
No,
Like of Star Trek?
I think the difference here is so far from what I can see, the production design in this show is lacking a certain um, reverence to the original series. What I like about
But don't you think it matches the movies?
it's a shadow of the movies. I don't even think it's
Right.
then set it. You know what? Then set it in the Kelvin timeline.
I
I'm
think it
okay with that.
is.
No, it's not. It says
No, but I think it is.
You think that's going to be a reveal?
I think, I mean, in the mind of the producers, I think it is.
Where do you like?
The
Where are you
network.
getting that? Where are you getting that
Because of
from?
how it looks. It looks like the movie.
It looks a lot like the movies, but it's not. What I like about the first thing I like about the reboot film franchise is that it isn't really a reboot. It's an alternate timeline, so it's easier to swallow the pill. The other thing I like about it is that everything's pretty close to the aesthetic of the original series, but just as I've mentioned before, just imagine an event like the Narada occurring, and all of a sudden you have to respond to
No, no, no,
that
no.
kind of thing. And so it's like the Enterprise has like larger nacelles and it's bigger and it's got more weaponry, and it's just like the design and the
But the tech is way
and
more.
well, because tech was so I hate to say it because I'm not a war person, but like threat increases all of these things. Like the threat of annihilation increases, technology in a civilization. It like kind of like forces you to push things forward. It's just like when Starfleet encounters the Borg, the E is kind of like a response to that. It's a new era vessel that can handle, and you see it like easily using
Right.
quantum, photon torpedoes and things like that. So to
Okay.
me, the threat here was the Narada, and so the Enterprise 1701, 20 years later, is a response to
Right.
this huge this new threat.
But you're talking in context.
Right.
You're talking intercontextual within the
Right.
universe. I'm talking
Right.
about the reality of the making of the show, which is that I think the people making the show look at the movies and the networks are like, okay, make a show that looks like that. And I'm sorry, but if you look at the Next Generation movies that were going on at the time of Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and I don't know if Nemesis was on at the time of Enterprise. Um, the movies never looked, way more expensive than like you could believe they're in the same universe. As a matter of fact, they frequently shared sets, and there was sort of a house style. There was a house visual style that Star Trek always had, and I think it was very much unchanged. You can see an evolution of it, but this new show looks like the new style adopted with the movies. And what I would have liked to have seen is them, since it's the show now, and a show set in the universe of the original show, I would have liked to have seen something more like Enterprise, where, okay, even though it's 10 years before Star Trek and 10 years after Enterprise, give us a show that we can imagine fits in there.
Enterprise is like 100 years
Which,
before Star Trek.
if you look at that Seth MacFarlane comedy show, that looks more like Star Trek than than this show. Like
But
it's the what I saw on the view screen and the way the Klingons looked and the lens flares, it just seemed like a spin-off of the movies. And I'm not, I'm not saying that couldn't be a good thing, but what I'm saying is that as an old school Star Trek fan, I would have liked to have seen something more in the style of every other Star Trek show that I've seen so far.
My understanding is that Enterprise is not that close in proximity to TOS. It's more like 100 years before the original series, if
Oh,
I'm
well,
not
okay,
mistaken.
yeah. I mean, whatever. I wasn't, but you understand what I'm saying is that I'm talking about the visual style of the show, the visual aesthetic, and what I saw in that trailer with the lens flare and the view screen and even the uniforms. It just didn't seem like something that matches what I've seen on Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, the original show, any of the original movies. What it does match is the three Kelvin universe. I mean,
What
do
do
you
you
agree or do you not agree?
I kind of don't agree. I think it looks more like Children of Dune than the than the Kelvin timeline. Something about the Kelvin films is just even I don't know. There's just they've defined their own aesthetic, and I agree that it's a
They're ripping it
shadow.
off.
Yeah,
Can you
I can
really
admit
say
to that.
that?
Yeah, I can say they're ripping
I
off
mean,
the
I'm not saying
Kelvin.
they're matching it, but it's obviously trying to follow it.
I mean, similar, yeah, because like I guess the difference is like to me, it's like here the bridge is darker and things like that, and I don't know, but like just the production design from the trailer looks more like chill, especially that beginning scene on the desert. I just was waiting for like sandworms to emerge and Moadib, or possibly Leto the second, to come out of the desert and
Oh
show them
God.
how to navigate without stars. I don't
If
know.
I'd known that, I would have brought out my Dune figures,
You
man. I
should
didn't know you
totally
were going to go
you
there.
gotta find. Which speaking of June, uh, connecting it a little bit to this weekend is. Are you excited about Twin Peaks?
Oh, you have no freaking idea. Oh my God. Yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
this does
But
tie in.
let's say
Oddly enough, it ties into Star Trek. On the week this week, if you listen to Drunk Space Nine, we did a crossover show with another podcast.
really
Yeah, these two wonderful podcasters, both of them women, who broadcast out of Brooklyn, New York, and they have a podcast called "There Will Be Drinking," and they are talking about Twin Peaks. So there will be drinking Twin Peaks edition. So it's Drunk
so
Space Nine.
did they discuss Twin Peaks? Is that what?
So no, they came on our show and we did Trials and Tribulations. We fast forwarded to season 5 of Deep Space Nine and did Trials and Tribulations,
Wow.
which is a great episode because it shows Cisco and the crew traveling to the original. That's the episode where they go back to the original series. And you know what? I thought about Star Trek Discovery. Funny enough, this is before the trailer came out. We recorded the episode with these ladies, but when I was rewatching Trials and Tribulations, and I saw how seamlessly they integrated the DS9 aesthetic with the original series, and just kind of like, you have that scene where Cisco he's like using the old panels in such a way. I thought about this where it's like it didn't bother me that there's buttons. Like I kind of want
Right.
like I love who
Exactly.
cares if there's buttons and like levers and switches. That's not the
It's
point, it's like
right.
but like
Right.
if you're going to do something set in the past of a universe, why not make it look just like that universe? I mean, like if you're going to try to like so that's my question. What do you think? We don't know the intention of the producers of Star Trek Discovery, but to give them maybe some benefit of the doubt, what do you think? Why set the show so close to the original series? Why?
In
I mean,
order to capitalize on the success of the movie, so they can say before Kirk, before Spock, and Kirk and Spock are in the movies. It's very simple. It's pure economics. It's
that's
how
not
many
Star
million.
Trek. If that's if that's
Do you
real,
understand the people running the okay, there's no Rick Berman right now. There's no there's no Gene Roddenberry. There's nobody who is really running the thing with any loyalty to what was Star Trek for so long. This is scorched earth, and you know this is the Trekkian carnage
Wow.
of their devising. I mean, the movies work, and they're going to follow what works. I mean, you know, within science fiction,
The movies work because they're pretty well done. They're not as good as the original series films, but they're fantastic. They're, you know, so I guess that's where the intrigue part of me comes in, and where ultimately I will have to hold my opinion until the damn thing actually airs.
right now. Before we go on any further, I mean, because you know, he's poor guy. He's here with us, and
Yes,
we're
so
not talking about him.
there's Ambassador Sarek,
Yes.
prime timeline Ambassador Sarek.
Yeah. I have to ask the question: is that Sarek in the trailer?
It's supposed to be Sarek because the actor who is portraying Sarek, as was announced by the official channels, is that same actor.
Okay, I have another question.
No, it's not Sarek. That's not how Sarek is. Like you say, 10 years before.
Wait a minute. So wait, is it Sarek or is it not Sarek?
It's definitely Sarek in world. It's not.
I have another question.
He's not hashtag not my Sarek so far.
I have Sarek, and I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the main character, I don't know what her name is. She is half human, half Vulcan?
I don't think so. So this is another thing. Like she might be.
What was that line about your tongue will never be Vulcan and all that crap?
It's too human. Well, I mean, like I can't imagine. Does Spock have a sister or a half sister
That's where I'm going. What?
I mean, let's look it up.
We've got Spock, Cybok,
and no, her last name's not. She's not half Vulcan. Her last name's like Bennett or something like that.
But there's a relationship between Sarek and this person.
Burnham. She's Burnham, but there's some kind of relationship between Sarek and this person. So
okay, so here's my question. So if he's had a relationship, a very close relationship, because you know, obviously he's there's a moment in the trailer where he's like, you know, what are you doing out there at the edge of the universe or whatever, or what have you gotten yourself into? I mean, there's some kind of relationship, a close relationship between the two of them, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're gonna tell me that same Sarek is then going to treat Spock the way he does? Like he's already got a previous history with a, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so like, official channels so far. So we don't know anything about the character. So we don't know if she's his daughter or half daughter or adopted daughter or anything even remotely resembling a daughter. But
and obviously no one cares about Cybok, I guess.
Right, but it's just Cybok and Spock. That's it. So Cybok was birthed between Sarek and a Vulcan princess.
Right, before Spock, yeah.
Before Spock, and Spock was birthed of Amanda Grayson. And there's no other listing.
I mean, do we have to get Kirk and Spock and McCoy in the brig again and have another line, you know, Captain, she's my sister. I happen to know you don't have a sister. Actually, Captain.
Speaking
she's
of
my half sister.
I have some beef with you because we have to do our Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 5, and we got to get through our film.
No, we're gonna do it. We're not gonna do it this weekend. We're gonna do it next weekend. Seriously, right. We're gonna do it next weekend.
Okay, well, there's a little snafu with that, but that's fine. We'll talk about
really? Okay.
We'll talk about it off the air. Going back to Star Trek Discovery trailer, so you know,
so Sarek.
So Sarek of Vulcan.
Why is he not Sarek?
There's no, I don't know. There's just not like. Again, this is another situation where I guess for me, you know, again, this is a personal thing. I don't want to say that like I represent the fandom or like the popular opinion.
No, I know. This is just you and me talking.
Yeah, you and I talking.
Screw the other people. I don't care. This is you and me talking.
I care about what others think.
I don't care. It's just you and me.
Right. It's just Mark Leonard is Sarek. Like it's just it's the same reason why I have a hard time I have an easier time accepting Kirk, Spock, the Kelvin crew, because of the whole fact that they're significantly younger than they were in the original series. So you can kind of like say, okay, um, they grow into the Kirk, Spock, McCoy, etc. that we have come to love, even though Carl Urban
Oh
resembles
wow.
doesn't
Yeah.
look anything like Dr. McCoy, but he resembles him in other ways. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
these other things. But I guess my point here is that like I feel like those actors all tried really hard to nail the characters of the original crew, whereas in so far I don't sense Sarek of Vulcan as far as like the character. I don't sense anything like Sarek of Vulcan from the Sarek that we saw online. Although I do like this actor. I've seen him in other things. He's like he was in Elizabeth, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He plays the King of Spain. Um, the actor who plays Sarek.
Question.
Yes.
What do you think of the Sarek in the Kelvin movies?
I didn't really like him either, but I liked him a little better because there's something about the way he carries himself, again, that echoes what Mark Leonard brought to Sarek, if that makes any sense. And I don't see that here. I actually
Well,
there's
it's
a
a
no,
trailer. I mean,
there's a nobility to Sarek. There's like this like kind of, and again, you can't, so Mark Leonard has one of those voices like Nicole Williamson, it's and like Leonard Nimoy, actually, if we're gonna go there. It's just like there's just this thing, and it's like the other thing is like and I know this will be revealed, but why is it so important that it's Sarek? Like, couldn't it just be another Vulcan? Like,
yeah,
like again,
yeah.
why is it so important that
Because again, I think
Sarek?
the network is I think it's a very network engineered show, and I think they're trying to sell it to people who are watching the new movies.
But you don't have to sell it. It's Star Trek. You just have to do it right. Like it'll you don't have to sell Star Trek. Star Trek speaks for itself. You know what I mean? If it's done right, you don't have to sell it. You don't have to like you don't have to shine it up. You don't have to like put bows or ribbons on it. You just have to make it really fucking good. Pardon my French again. And
But
so
remember,
so is this show not going to be good? I don't know. That's the part where again I'm intrigued and I'm going to watch it, of course. And they're lucky they have built an audience, and so many people are going to buy a subscription to CBS just to watch this thing and give it a chance, and that's awesome. Is it going to live up to Star Trek? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Does the trailer give me confidence that it's Star Trek? No, it doesn't give me any confidence that we're going to get a great, epic, awesome Star Trek series with new, exciting things ahead of us. Like, the other thing that bothers me is like, whatever this mystery is that's going on, and like some of the lines in the trailer about like, leaders bridging things. We've never heard of Commander Burnham before. If her character arc is going to eventually take us to a place where she has some kind of prominence in the Star Trek universe, then it's diminished by all the rest of Star Trek continuity. And so that bothers me too, because it's like, at least with Captain Archer, he's so far back that like, one can see that like he's not often mentioned, perhaps, right? But with all the other Star Trek series, like, because they take place in their own time, let's just put it that way, each of the commanders or captains or heroes of those series get to have a significant impact on the Star Trek universe. We have Captain Picard, significant impact, also, as well as the rest of the crew. Captain Sisko, Captain Janeway, they all have their time in which they make their impact.
They have their era.
They have their era. And here we are so close to another era. So close. Archer even has his era. He is the Archer's pre everything. He's like the source or whatever. So to like have this like whole crew that's supposed to do exciting things and like accomplish all these like wonderful things and like make their mark, but no, they're not really the ones remembered for that era. They're not going to make their mark. It's going to be the original series crew, and that's just how it's going to be. You know what I mean? Like, as far as debates go, there might be some people that are like, oh yeah, Star Trek Discovery is way cooler than Star Trek the original series, but it doesn't matter what they say, because Star Trek the original series is that era. That's what's associated with that era. And it's like, why have Discovery, why already handicap or cripple a show like that? To me, that's the baffling part. It's like, outside of my big pet peeve about the era, I'm there's things to be excited about. Like, it's, like, the trailer does present some compelling imagery, like that weird binary star system with the asteroids circling it. It looks like a black hole, and all these. There's like a lot of intriguing things. Had you set the show in the future, those Klingons could have also been interesting, because you could totally redesign the Klingons and say that and give a plausible reason, like genetic, manipulation, or
Which has already happened if you think about it.
Right. It's true. Or invasion by another. What if it was they were hybrids of some, like Klingons and something else, and like that was the dominant Klingon. I did like, someone said that who's Kalus's enemy? I want to say Morgoth, but that's Lord of the Rings. But
oh gosh, I don't remember.
Well, anyways, Kalus is the victor between this emperor of the time of the Klingons, the leader of the time, and Kalus comes out victorious. He invents the first batlet or whatever, if I recall correctly, from the Worf stuff, and I think it's DS9. But the other Klingons, the Klingons that followed the other guy, were banished from the Empire. So what if this is them? That's exciting. But again, would have been cooler if it was set in the future. And there is, it does intrigue me, the sarcophagus and the whole, like, are they zombie Klingons? What are they? I mean, I feel like there's,
oh God.
I mean, there's a lot of things, again, that are intriguing.
I hope not.
There's a lot of things that are intriguing, but they're just mired by this overall, like, sense of, disdain, or just like this, like, troubling feeling that I have, that, like, again, I feel like I'm being sold something. Like, I feel like
you are.
No, I know, and again, I just don't think Star Trek needs to be sold. I give Star Trek a lot more credit than that.
But but we have to, Star Trek. I mean, obviously we're diehards, but we're also over. Well, I'm over 40. You're getting there.
I don't know. Are we diehards? Because there's a lot of people on the internet. I try not to.
Wait a minute. Did you just ask if we were diehards?
No, I know how I feel about Star Trek, and you know how you feel about Star Trek. But there's people on the internet saying that if you're not willing to, which, by the way, I am willing to give Discovery a chance, but there's people that are saying you're not a fan of Star Trek, and this is just, like, bothering me. It's like, no, I am a fan, I promise, but it's like, I just don't easily go along with bad stuff.
Sure. No, I know. Oh, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Okay,
sorry.
Well, no. I think I agree with you. I'm not, I am obviously going to watch it. I think it will be successful. I think, I find it hard to, the movies have been somewhat successful. I think, like, it's like what you just said. Star Trek is strong enough as a brand, especially on television, that it's got a built-in audience, and I think the audience is large enough, and especially through this new model, where now we watch things on demand. I think it will be successful enough on its own that, it'll make its money back, and it'll be its own Star Trek for a while, and I will watch episodes. However,
we plan on discussing them.
Yeah. Right. However, based on the trailer, I'm just not as excited about it as I am, say, Twin Peaks, or or newer shows. You know, the thing with something like Star Trek or Doctor Who, for example. Hey, Arthur,
Hey,
where you know, you have established continuity, and it's the same thing with any like comic books or whatever, or just say the James Bond movies. You know, you're competing with everything that's gone before, and there has to be a certain measure of paying homage to what's already happened, what's already, you know, what's drawn in the older fans, and reeling in new ones. And it's a careful balance. And when you just do a scorched earth and you just, okay, we're just starting from scratch again, and we're no, or it's going to look all different and it's all new, you do run the chance of alienating a lot of the core audience. And right now, from what I've seen, it could very well be a spin-off of Battlestar Galactica. And you know,
hey
Battlestar
there,
Galactica
hi there.
is an interesting example of one. You know, there was its own controversy. It had its own controversy at the time among its fans. Battlestar Galactica, the reimagining, the second one, was a show that I think alienated its original core audience, but it gained a lot of new fans. I know Javier, for example, didn't watch the old one, but he loved the new one until the end. And you know, this Star Trek might be something like that. It could be a situation where, you know, people like you and I were like, the original was better, but it's gonna hook a lot of new fans. And let's face it, there are a lot of people out there who did not grow up with Star Trek. All they know are the movies. And if
Natural. I
you
mean, naturally. I mean, you're born with
right,
it. I mean, like,
and if all you know is the movies, and then you get a show that says this is 10 years before those movies, or 10 years before the characters, let's say. Now, these newer fans really don't have much knowledge of, you know, the non-Kelvin universe. They're going to watch the show, and to them, it's going to be connected to the movies. You get me? So
I still, I don't. But you
I
know,
think that's the hook.
I have to say, your Battlestar Galactica um, point has me thinking a little bit because, okay, I see that. I totally see. That's a really good point because yes, if you compare the original Battlestar Galactica to the reimagined, actually, I think that's what they were calling it, was the reimagined
Mhm.
series. Uh,
Reimagined by Ron Moore from Star Trek,
yes, of course.
oddly enough.
but but re but but again, it was marketed as a reimagined series, um, and it was like everyone was really careful to let you know that this is not that Battlestar Galactica is Battlestar Galactica, and that this is the reimagined series. And there's even like a hinting that the original Battlestar Galactica actually did happen, and that this happens to be, you know, everything has happened before and will happen again. So there's another iteration of that
Right.
story occurring. So there's like
Mhm.
interesting hints of that, and other homages to the original
God, we should do a
concept.
Battlestar
Oh,
Galactica.
I would love to, but we got to get through
Oh
Star Trek
God!
first. We gotta get to Star Trek first.
Wow.
But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts, especially with all the musical references. But going back to here, I would have loved it if they just said that. If they said Star Trek Reimagined, like, but they've been touting it as like in the prime continuity, and like, you know,
Mhm.
that's, I guess that's what it really boils down to, is watching this trailer kind of like blew, um, like kind of just like what's the word? It kind of like I had different expectations than what
Yeah.
we actually
Hmm.
what we
Yeah.
actually got, you know.
Yeah.
And just another way to like another Battlestar Galactica thing is the uniforms look more like Battlestar Galactica reimagined uniforms than they do Star
Yeah.
Trek. And at least the 2009 or the the Kelvin universe, like at least the uniforms are the same. And like, why, you know, that's, see there, I'm gonna go off again. It's like, how hard would it have been to reimagine a uniform that looks not too different from what we get 10 years later?
Yeah.
posted a picture on I posted a picture
You're right.
of the original series crew standing on a transporter pad wearing, their iconic uniforms. And I did one of my, it just simply says 10 years after Star Trek Discovery. And it's like, the question is how? like what happens in that short span of
Mhm.
time that changes everything to go
Yeah.
and look like this, And it's like,
Yeah, it's true. You're right.
I would have actually even preferred, if you're gonna reimagine everything, just reimagine the whole goddamn original series. Like, let's just have a TV Kirk, Spock, McCoy situation going on if that's what your intention is. But like, again, it's a
But
little
then you'd
baffling.
be competing with the movies.
I guess, I don't know, are
Yeah,
you?
you
I mean,
are.
like,
You would be. Yeah.
there's rumors that this next film is the last one for this crew. I don't think there's a lot of rumors that perhaps Zachary Quinto is not interested anymore, or he's moved on. And
Yeah, I
so
wouldn't.
how long could those last? And it's like, I just feel like, I guess as a Star Trek fan, I'm also a fan of all the work that has been put into the original series. And I feel like, to me, it's like, since the original series films, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and even to a degree DS9 and Voyager have that, as you said earlier, that Gene Roddenberry kind of vision. It's just like, let's just capsule that era, put it away, and then here's new Star Trek. This is it. Like, guys, this is a whole new era. I mean, who the heck cares? It's the future. Set it like 100 years after Gene Roddenberry's vision. Like, it's not
Mhm.
gonna, that little tiny detail will make all the difference in the world to like loyal fans, but it won't make any difference to anyone else. It's just set far
Right,
in the future, and
but
it's like,
but
there's so
yeah.
many great stories you can tell. You can even harken back to the original series, and then if people are interested, they won't have this trouble of the continuity. Like, now, someone someone's going to discover Star Trek through Star Trek Discovery, and I'm happy about that. I'm so excited that there's going to be Star Trek on TV, well, sort of TV, and like, someone's going to be a fan of the show and they're going to get really into it, and then they're going to watch Star Trek the original series and be like, oh, it's what's going on here? Like, they're not going to. I feel like they're not going to be as interested, but whereas if they had known, oh, this is, if this is in the, I don't know, maybe I'm
Well,
just
that I
spoiled.
mean, as a Doctor Who fan, that you know, I have a similar reaction because I have a lot of I work at a high school. A lot of kids watch the show, and of course they say, "Oh yes, I've been watching it since the beginning," and of course they refer to
Christopher Eccleston.
Eccleston,
They think of
right?
Eccleston as
And right, and then if you a few of them say, "Oh yeah, I tried the classic show," and they just can't, like they can't crack that. You can't go into that, and I feel that um, Enterprise, the show, was an interesting way of acting as a sort of a gateway into the original show. And CBS spent the money on making the effects, on redoing the special effects, so at least you have that. And there's been a real investment in that original show, which is why I'm just really surprised that the look of what we saw in the teaser or trailer or whatever just seems so far from that. Um, Now, in an effort to not sound, oh, Khan is out there. In an effort to not sound completely negative, I will say that there is one thing that got me excited. Only one thing, and it was Michelle Yao. I think she's done some great sci-fi work. I mean, she's in that movie
Yeah.
Sunshine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and she was even in Guardians of the Galaxy for like 2 seconds.
Well, the actress who
Uh,
plays, I think they're all intriguing. I'm actually I'm with a few nitpicks here and there. I'm actually even intrigued by the alien characters that they presented to us. Like, I like the idea. Again, that to me seems like not executed the way I would want it to be executed in what I consider the Star Trek way. But perhaps the bridge being populated by aliens is interesting. Michelle Yeoh, and we
Michelle
still haven't
Yeoh,
even, yeah, we still haven't seen Jason Isaac.
Jason Isaac, which I think was just how can you dare have the
I
fucking
know.
trailer and not show Jason Isaac? That doesn't make any damn sense to me.
And we didn't even actually, well, not only that, we just haven't seen the Discovery. My speculation here is that the Shenzhou somehow discovers the Discovery. Maybe
now let me ask you, you know, the show is centered around, I don't know what her name is.
Burnham, command. I think it's Commander Burnham.
What do you think? What do you think of her? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's the part of me that's intrigued.
You were intrigued.
I'm intrigued by she
made an impression on you.
She just intrigued me. That's as much of an impression. Did. All of them kind of intrigued me. I'm interested in the performances. I'm definitely interested in that. And again, Michelle Yeoh is a big part of that. Like she's the anchor of that that like interest.
Oh yeah. Why is there not a show with her? Like her as the captain, and
I know that. Well, that's the thing.
That fucking shit,
so that's an interesting thing. Discovery's following this character. So I'm wondering if Michelle Yeoh's just like ushering the series in, like, you know, does she transfer from the Shenzhou to the Discovery? Like what's that line about, you know, what's the line about the
it's time you have your own
command, and what does that even mean? Because I thought, you know, I don't know, there's so many what does that mean? And that's good, you know, there's stuff for us to find out. I mean, like, I kind of like that you don't really know what's going on from the trailer. You just kind of are being presented with like, hey, this is kind of like, it's a proper teaser. It's like, this is the aesthetic, this is the, you don't really know what's going on, which I like. I don't want to know until, you know, I want to be excited by the show itself. But yeah, so just, I mean, but I'm just so bummed. I don't know, like my expectations aren't being met, and I know that sounds whiny and like,
hey, the show is being made. It's for fans, to attract a fan base, and and we are potential fans, and you know, I mean, it's like anything else.
No, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
I agree with you. I think I'm a little less intrigued by it. Actually, I think I'm a lot less. I'm a lot less intrigued by it.
You've always been more pragmatic when it comes to these things.
I mean, I don't know. I just, you know, I'm trying also to compare with other examples of being hooked into a Star Trek show. Obviously with Star Trek Next Generation, you know, whatever pre-publicity that went out was very exciting.
Well, ultimately for me, the downfall of Enterprise, but I do have to give it a proper chance. I have to admit that I kind of, you know, lost interest. But ultimately, to me, the downfall with it was, I guess personally, for me, going backwards isn't as interesting as going forwards. And I look at Star Trek. I've always said that, yeah, and I look at Star Trek not as just, I especially, you know, I don't see it as just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy's story, or the crew, or the original crew for that matter. It's not about them anymore. Next Generation totally changed that. So now I see it as more of like the story of
the universe.
Of that universe, correct? Like it has expanded beyond. The universe is such a rich universe, and I like how in First Contact we definitely go back in time, and you know, you have a one-off situation where you get to see interesting things about the past of that universe, but but there's a part, but the real desire for me is to know what happens next. It's just like all of our lives. So the future is unknown to us. We're very interested by the future,
the undiscovered country.
The undiscovered country, and it just seems also just contrary to what Star Trek Star Trek's another message I feel like I received from Star Trek is that, you know, yes, learn from the past and know the, you know, the lessons of history that history can give you, but move forward. It's like it's about moving forward. It's about
Right.
going into unexplored places and you know, things like that. And you know, it's like again, here's another thing. You know, whatever this amazing thing Star Trek Discovery is discovering out in at the edge of Federation space, well, by the next generation, that's not the edge of Federation space anymore. So where is that thing? Like, what is it? You know, like, you know, like, so like 90 years later, that's no longer the edge of Federation space. How much cooler would it be if a show took place in the future and we really were exploring the known edge of Federation
Right.
space? You know, like,
Right.
why not, you know, like things like that? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And um, you know, I'm just, you know, Star Trek just seems to be stuck in its own past. I mean, ever since Enterprise.
Well, it's not
Uh,
just Star Trek. I feel like this seems to be some strange phenomenon, and maybe I'm just out of touch with this phenomenon, but there's this like, I mean, I definitely understand nostalgia and I have nostalgic feelings for, you know, a past I've never known, plus my own. You know, I'm obsessed with the Victorian era of England, and you know, the and especially, you know, just all over the world at that time period. But folks around England. But if you gave me a time machine and gave me the choice, yes, I'd go pop in to see, just like dress up in period costume and pop in. But where would I want to like live? Like if I had to be stranded in time, I'd want to be stranded in the future. You
right.
know, like that's where I would want to be stranded because I would know nothing. I would like it's just exciting. It's the you know, it's all this, and it's like I don't know, but it's a phenomenon I feel like that's happening everywhere. I mean, like we seem to be seeing a lot of remakes of everything, you know, like everything's like, let's go back and explore this thing that we already know so much about that we
Right.
and maybe it's out of fear or laziness. I mean, even like even this current administration, you know, the platform that the campaign platform and the slogan was "Make America Great Again." Well, okay, you know, why not like make America greater? You know, like let's assume
Hmm.
America's already great and it hasn't
Hmm.
stopped being great, and let's make America greater. You know, like
Right.
you can
Yeah.
always be greater. I mean, like there's not a limit to how great you can be, you know, like
Right.
so it's just
Right.
I don't know. There's I don't
Well,
understand. I don't understand
no,
like
I think
is the present so horrible? Does the future seem so bleak? Does it really, you know, like what is it?
you know, as I said, I think Star Trek has been in a bit of a rut. Obviously, after the financial failure of Nemesis. I mean, personally, I loved Nemesis. Um, Enterprise was cut short as a show, so Star Trek as a brand kind of, you know, went down. So there's a perceived notion that Star Trek is a brand in need of a retooling. And you know, the reality is that everything is so expensive right now, and you know, these studios, they're, you know, the reason they're going for all these remakes and the reason they're all going for all this, you know, known IP, as they call it, intellectual property, is because they think, well, if it's got some fan base out there, we can exploit that. And they're just afraid to take chances. And the reality is that Star Trek, for the most part of its history, has been defined by Kirk, Spock, McCoy era. So therefore, if you want to create the most successful iteration of Star Trek, then you need to look back at what was originally successful, and it's Kirk and Spock in this thing. So obviously, when they came back with the movies, they decided to do that. Now, as you already pointed out, they did so in a very intelligent way so as not to ignore everything that's happened before, and they came up with a wonderful, brilliant in-universe explanation for why everything is different and blah blah blah. Okay, but this show, we need to have that explanation,
and we may get it. It might be there.
I don't have that faith. I believe that it's simply this is what science fiction looks like right now. This is what Star Trek looks like right now. This is the new house style, and we have to follow it. This is the new, when Firefly came out, it introduced a little shaky cam, and and then after Battlestar Galactica, and now we've got tons of shaky cam everywhere. Even Star Trek has shaky cam.
Well, and then Battlestar Galactica introduced like the idea of the actual physics, like being
right, the zoom, right. So
and all these things. I get it, and I don't mind all of that being integrated into Star Trek. But bottom line is that, like, why put all this like effort into the production design's not bad. It's actually pretty beautiful. Like, like again, like what we were
presenting. But it doesn't look like so. Oh, excuse me.
But it could be. That's the thing. That's my whole argument. Is that it could be. What's that?
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it could be Star Trek aesthetic if it were put in the correct context. Like,
really good in the correct context. But I don't think they care about context. I think they just care about making something that looks as much like the new movies as,
or better than, or whatever,
or better, and ride the coattails of it and say, well, if you like that, when you go to Netflix, it'll suggest, if you like this, you'll like this.
I bet you
often doesn't work.
Children of Dune will come up, and so will Battlestar Galactica when you're watching Star Trek Discovery. That's totally gonna be. It's the first thing I thought of was Children of Dune, and I like the sci-fi version. Don't get me wrong here, but
wow.
What about?
I gotta have my whole toy collection ready at hand with you. I mean, it's like, if I'd known that, I totally would have.
That's so funny. Well, that's the whole fun part, is that we hadn't talked about this before, so we're actually talking about this for the first time together. Question for you: the ship that was presented, the Shanzhou. I don't know if there's a precedence for this. I think there might actually be. I vaguely recall seeing a blueprint of a ship in the original role-playing game for Star Trek, where they had like a bunch of different ship designs in one of the booklets that came with it. But the bridge is underneath the saucer section. It's not.
No way. Is that right?
Yeah, you didn't notice that? On the Shanzhou, the bridge is on the bottom of the saucer section, and then you kind of have to, when you watch the trailer, I think you'll notice it. It's not unclear. It's clear from the trailer, but the shot is a zooming in shot that comes from the bottom, and then the other thing is they show the ship from the top, and you see that there's no bridge up there. It's just like flat on the top.
Wow, it's like a glass bottom boat.
It's like a glass bottom boat. But is that cool, or do you hate it? You kind of reacted like it was cool. Yeah.
No. I like the bridge on the saucer.
On the top of the
saucer. Yeah, I don't really. I don't really understand why you would put it on the bottom.
I'm sure there's a Trek Yards about this. I haven't had a chance to look into it yet, but I'd be very curious to see what.
Yeah, I'd like to know what they think. Yeah.
What they think.
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, I guess, should we rate the
No, we're not going to give it a rating.
You can't give the rating either,
right? Most people have a full measure
of life.
And some people watch it slowly slip away. But if you could summon it all up at one place, at one time, you can
accomplish something glorious.
Insert bagpipe music here.
Actually, you know what quote I'm thinking of right now is what is Chancellor Gorkin's words to Kirk?
People are
The
afraid of the
two
future and change. People are
people such as you and I will have the hardest time
oh,
in this.
this new world.
You and I, and no, I mean seriously, I think
I think we are gonna have a hard time with Star Trek Discovery. I'm
we
not even
are.
sure that I'm gonna call it Star Trek at this point, or
Oh, what is your you coined the what is it? It's a space trek. Space
trek.
It's a trek through space.
Through space. I love that line. You people, no, it's you people. You're on some kind of Star Trek.
Star Trek. Yeah, he delivers it so great.
So great. I will say that what I have, this is speculation on my part, but what seems to be going on is that CBS has been doing this thing where they'll like release a concept, see what the reaction to that concept is, and then go back and retool it again. So I'm hoping that there's a huge campaign.
You can't retool it that much anymore.
You can just change the dates. That's all I want. Change the fucking dates. It's not set 10 years.
Oh, they're not going to do there. Yeah,
That's all I want. The show looks great. Other than that, Les Moonves, if you're listening to this podcast somehow, I don't know how you would be listening to it.
He's not.
I really love you, baby. Les Moonves, you're amazing. You've done such amazing things in your time. But whoa, but wait. Les Moonves, please just think about it. Does it make sense to you? Does it really make sense? Has someone actually laid out to you what's happening here? Because if they haven't, I'm happy to do it for you. I'm happy to come over and show you what's going on and what you're doing to Star Trek, in my opinion. So
now,
my open letter to Les Moonves. Baby,
you know, people who worked on this show have included we can't forget Nicholas Meyer is somehow involved in this.
I haven't heard hide nor tail from him though.
No.
We haven't heard hide nor tail from Nick Meyer.
There's somebody else, a noted writer of Star Trek fiction.
Oh,
right,
great. I believe.
And then of course we had this guy, Brian Fuller.
By the way, are you watching American Gods? Should I watch it?
Oh, I haven't. No, and I love Neil Gaiman, but I've been watching. I've been watching Next Generation. Thanks to you.
Thank you. And
the Fortitude on Amazon. But anyways,
going back, so Brian Fuller was associated with it,
right? So I mean, there's some noted Trek people involved, but I don't know. I just I think they have a mandate from the network. I think they're following the mandate, and I think that mandate doesn't really take into account this context that you're talking about, that I'm talking about. I think at the end of the day, they just want something that's going to be successful, something that looks new. The vast majority of Star Trek product, and it is a product to them, the vast majority of Star Trek product looks very dated when compared to, say, Star Wars right now, or I don't know, what's another sci-fi? I mean, just about anything. So the only thing that's keeping Star Trek kind of relevant to most modern fans is those movies. So they're going to follow what works. And
you think Star Trek: The Next Generation era looks dated now, or do you think it looks dated to others?
Yes.
But does it
yes,
look
it
dated
does.
to it? Looks dated to you.
It does.
It looks dated to you.
No, not to me, but I lived it.
I see. Okay.
But I think to new people, I can't tell you how many. I mean, remember, I work at a high school, so
yeah, it's an interesting perspective.
With 18, 17-year-olds, and I've had conversations. It constantly surprises me what is old to them.
Okay, so
You
here's
know, and I can tell you
but is not
with yeah.
but doctor is nothing sacred because let me tell you, Next Generation was the response to our generation feeling the original series was dated. I mean, I get that. Like, I get what you're saying. The younger generation always wants what's what's cool to them. You know, like I get it. I totally get it. You know what I mean? And at some point, you have to give way to. I remember when Star Trek: The Next Generation came on the television, my father declaring, the only basically what Scotty
Ah,
said. The
no
only
bloody A, no bloody
yeah,
B.
yeah, he was not interested in the all the cool gadgetry and all the the screens, the touch screens, and he was not interested in like the sleek new Galaxy class starship. He was like he was just like you know
And now we are at that point where we're not interested, you know.
that's who we are. But it's
Um,
not. But what I mean by is nothing sacred is that like at least my father didn't have to have his history revised by Star Trek: The
correct,
Next Generation,
correct,
whereas my
correct.
history is now being revised. I
Yes,
think
absolutely.
that's probably my reaction. It's an
Yeah,
affront on my own personal history
of
with Star
course.
Trek.
But we are
That's it.
relevant.
Yes.
No, we are relevant, and
No, I don't know. Well, I mean, can it be
no.
that you and I have grown so old that we have outlived our usefulness?
I
Like, is
mean,
that
we
what it is?
are. We,
Wow.
it's
Very humbling and very true, but very humbling.
I'll just make a quick example. I loaned. You remember Dark City, the movie?
Yes, I love that movie.
Okay, I had a kid tell me that he couldn't finish it because it just looked old.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is not like this is a high level kid. You know, I only lend stuff to high level kids. And this kid, you know, he's really into production and he dug the look, you know, the metro you know, references to Metropolis and all that stuff. But there was something about the movie that just seemed very old to him. Not just the look, but just the way it was, the way it was edited and all that stuff. And that's what I'm saying is you know, I mean, like
It's
to
a
me, Doctor Who, like I said, you know, to me, classic Doctor Who is watchable. I understand that just the very nature of its presentation is absolutely antiquated. I mean, it's almost like watching a theatrical play, uh, when compared, or you know, as opposed to watching a film. You know,
mhm.
but I that's the way I grew up with that, so I can watch it now. Granted, you know, even I have trouble with the Hartnells sometimes, you know, because I'm not that old. So I think it's smart. I'll say this: I think overall, it's probably smart on the part of the makers of the show, to follow the aesthetic of the new show, but it's going to alienate. It may alienate fans like you and I because of the context, which is why your argument is 100% valid, which is they had only changed the dates. You know, if they had only gone further into the future, this would all be a moot point. If you go into the future, then it doesn't matter how high tech it looks, it's the future.
Right.
You'll never have that problem. Your
Right.
only problem is when you go backwards. I just saw the ending of that horrible King Arthur movie.
Oh, I
And
haven't seen it.
one of the main problems I had with it, of many problems, is that the actors all look like they just came out of like they look like they're guys that work at Home Depot. Like they're wearing I don't know, they just look like they don't look like they're in medieval England.
It's
It's got the beautiful
anachronistic.
armor of
That's a great
Excalibur
yeah.
and okay, maybe that's I don't know, maybe that looks retro, but dude, that's what they wore back then.
Yeah.
You know, you have to make something. There has to be context. I mean, our argument with the consulting detective is also applies. You know, I have no problem with the upteenth versions of Sherlock Holmes. I even watched the one where he's woken up from hibernation in the 1980s. But that Holmes is the Holmes from the Victorian era. He just happens to be in the 80s and he dresses like the Victorian era. So it's fine. I have a problem with a Sherlock Holmes in the modern era who,
Right.
you know, obviously
Right.
lives in a
No,
world where what? There's no Arthur
it's
Conan Doyle. I mean, that's a whole other
right.
show.
That's
But
so. This is what's happening.
to Star Trek,
It's an anachronism.
it's an anachronism in within the continuity.
Within its own continuity.
So I
Fascinating.
agree with you. I think it sucks that they've decided to do that. It's going to take a lot to convince me to swallow it. I am watching Enterprise. I'm finding a whole new respect for that show, but
or just say we're reimagining Star Trek, and
or
like
just
this is
reimagine Star
just
Trek. Yeah, right.
reimagine Star Trek, and just say it. Like, don't say
Right. Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's in the prime timeline or the
Right.
continuity. It's just say,
Just right. We're
call,
starting from scratch.
yeah, hey, and I would have been like intrigued still.
Right.
And
I
I
agree with you.
so
I
all
agree
right.
with you 100%.
So I guess our main problems, both of us would start to sum it up, as well, you were going to do it, so if you want to still sum it up, you can. But what I'm seeing here is our main problem has nothing to do with an excitement level about a cool sci-fi show that's coming out. Like, there's some intriguing things that happen in this trailer that are very the production design seems really great. A lot of people are saying it doesn't look great, but I kind of like it. I think for TV it's awesome. But what it doesn't feel like is Star Trek, and I think that's the main problem, because we're having a problem with the context of the show. Like, we're having a problem of where it takes place, the time period it takes place in, the universe it takes place in, and the characters such as Sarek that are in it, who we have this whole contextual understanding of. So do you think that's right?
Yep, you're right.
All right, so that's it. That's our Star Trek, are very lengthy, by the way.
It's longer than the trailer.
Star Trek Discovery. Oh god. Conversation, our casual and informal conversation. It was like really lovely
Oh
to hear your
wow, it's an
thoughts
hour and
though.
17 minutes. Holy cow! It's longer than an episode of the show.
It might
In
be,
theory.
in theory, yeah. Before you haven't quit recording yet, right?
No.
Okay, so 13 episodes, is that what I'm hearing? Do you know anything? Do you know any of the facts? I think it's going to be a 13 episode season, which is in line with kind of what we're used
happens
to.
now?
Yeah.
Which also sucks, but
I know I want my 23 episode seasons, but it's okay. It's okay.
it's a different world, man.
Any
It's a different world.
speculation about what's going on in the story based on what you've seen on the trailer? Anything you wish to speculate?
No, I mean it has Klingons. Once again, they seem to be adversarial, which there's certainly no reason why you couldn't have said it in the future and just had them be adversarial again. The pendulum swings back and forth.
Right.
I think it would have been more interesting if we
Somehow,
and the Klingons are freaking enemies again. I mean, on DS9
they go off. There's
right for like a season on us. So it on us on Federation. So I don't see why. I don't think necessarily having the Klingons as villains is necessitates having to go back in time. But I know that there was a mention that this is supposed to chronicle some pivotal. I don't know if they use the word pivotal, but some chapter of Star Trek history that was mentioned in the original show. And I have to admit, I'm still pretty clueless. I have no clue what the hell they're talking about. And from the footage that we saw in the teaser, I mean, I have no clue what's going on, really. So I don't know. I think there was parts of it that kind of reminded me of Flash Gordon, the '80s one. I don't know if you
Oh,
got that
fascinating.
vibe.
Well, welcome aboard officially from the fan from this fan and I'll speak for you, the doctor, from the Starfleet Boy team here. Welcome aboard,
You
officially
vouch for me?
officially to the Star Trek universe. Sorry that your beginnings are mired in controversy, but hey, many things that turn out to be great are do begin in controversial ways. So I have every hope for you, Star Trek new Star Trek Discovery. I really do. I really have every hope for you. And Michelle Yeoh, very cool.
Yeah.
Nice to see her helming captaining a ship. And I can't wait to see our first glimpses of Captain Lorca, I think his name is.
Is that Jason Isaac?
Jason Isaac, yeah. So I can't wait to see
Yeah.
our first glimpse of him. So
Is the alien who sees his own death the guy from Crawl? I mean, not the guy from Crawl. Is it
Doug
the guy from
Spence.
Hellboy?
Yes, that's him. And I don't think it's his own death. He can sense. Oh, I guess we should talk about this character. His whole species is predetermined to be able to sense the coming of death, and he can sense it.
Is that a little? Oh,
I just feel like he's gonna be sensing death a lot because a
it's like
lot of
another Troy like character. I mean, I don't
a
know. I
little
just
bit,
feel like,
but very specific.
um,
Whereas Counselor Troy can sense many things. He can only sense the approach of death.
impending death.
So
Do you
it
remember
must be.
Crawl? You remember the Cyclops from Crawl?
Oh God, it's been so like all I remember about Curl are the ninja stars. The
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
remember there are Cyclopses. Well, there's one Cyclops, and the story is that the Cyclopses wanted to see the future, and so they made a bargain with forget what the bad guy is called in Crawl. And so what the bad guy did is that he took one of their eyes,
Oh.
and the eye that remains gives them sight of the future, but only of their own death.
That's fantastic.
And when I heard that thing
That kind
about
of
impending
reminded you of
death,
that.
it reminded me of that, and that seems very much in the vein of in the vein of fantasy. Like I'm sort of wondering, okay, Star Trek's very much sci-fi, hard sci-fi sometimes. And I'm thinking, okay, impending death. Like, what exactly is the guy sensing? Is he sensing? I
Well, I
mean,
mean, like I said, his senses must be going crazy because I
but
mean, I don't know how far his
you're
range.
traveling in a starship. I mean, impending
Right,
death surrounds you everywhere. I mean,
right now. It's just it's
one random asteroid can hit you and you're gone. Like Mission to
but
Mars. Remember the little micro?
yeah, and I'm sure it's deeper and more intricate than that. Maybe he could like
But didn't that seem more like fantasy rather than sci-fi? That one, I know
one
we're really
sequence is so
nitpicking, but
specific. I do like the concept though of the Cyclops that you said, and it would be interesting if this character had like a kind of was like an argument for predestination because he actually would know his own death. That's the only thing he knows about the future. So when that time comes, he's like resigned to it, and so it'll be interesting to
but
like
that's not scientific though.
no, it's
It's not
not.
sci-fi.
But Star Trek has elements of mysticism that they leave to just like I think just like
Okay,
Civilization. Yeah.
DS9.
Oh, what are you looking?
No, no, you're
Well, no,
talking like
yes.
DS9.
No, exactly. Well, for example, the podcast was saying the orbs, they all do some weird shit. Like there was the time orb that took them back in time to the tribbles,
Right,
and stuff like that. So
but see, even with DS9, what was great about DS9 is that you did have these beings that, of course, the Bajorans were supernatural, but then you had the Federation and Starfleet looking at them as just, well, they're aliens. They're looking at them through a scientific lens. So it kind of
but where but
you
where
always had that.
but where the show kind of like strongly kind of puts mysticism into your or fantasy, it goes on the realm of fantasy, is definitely the Bajoran culture, things like reading your paw, all these things. Like there's no explanation for them, but a lot of times, like when Kaio Paka reads your pot, she nails it. She's like touches your
That's
ear, and
true.
she knows everything about you, right? And but they don't have
True.
powers. It's not a power.
Right.
She's just reading your own energy, your aura, or whatever it is about you. You know what I mean?
That's correct.
So I would say
That's
that,
true.
that's a mystical kind of supernatural slash fantastical element.
So maybe this guy falls into that.
It's yeah, it's possible.
And that's actually rather unique. I mean, Star Trek doesn't do much of that, to
No,
be
it doesn't do
honest.
much of that.
I mean,
Uh,
DS9 is sort of an isolated
but it would reflect our
pocket of
time.
that.
But you know, it would reflect our time. I think a lot of people are looking back. Okay, so well, that's interesting. So people are looking back to old wisdom, so to speak, which once was thought to be laughable or fantastical or whatever, but now certain things like uh you know in the again, I'm not a scientist, so this is probably gonna sound very like general here because I just don't know a lot about it, but what I'm understanding is that like some studies in the world of neuroscience and as well as physics are coming upon these like kind of like walls where they're like this is happening and it works, but we still don't know why it's happening or why it works. And like a specific thing is like this idea that like your mind can actually influence things like healing and your state of thought, your thoughts and things like this, but they don't know why, and it's not something that they can prove necessarily is happening because there's too many factors that could also be facilitating the healing process. But it's a factor to consider, if you will.
Right.
So yeah, I think that that's reflective of our times, and maybe that's what this character will represent. Something like the that kind of unknown. Who knows? I don't know that I you did you watch Stargate? You did, right? You were a Stargate TV show fan, right?
I mean, I watched off and on.
The Asgardians, it was awesome that they had these like do you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
awesome that they had these like cool like alien creatures, but they were like red dwarf level puppets, like, or they
Yeah.
they were
They
like this
were.
awesome show with CGI, and
Yeah.
then you had these red dwarf level puppets,
Yeah.
and so in there was something to the lips of that character that just
Yeah.
like kind
I
of
loved it.
go no, but they didn't
Yeah.
go right with the what he
And I
was.
loved it.
Oh, you loved it, so you like that kind of like.
Well, I'm a Doctor Who fan. How could it? Yeah. I mean,
That's true. I guess you're
but
right. So
you know what? Those things, I have to say, those things still have a reality that CGI doesn't. I mean, unless
no, it's
it's
true.
Yoda
The
from
character
the
looks,
episode.
yeah. Oh well,
You
yeah.
know.
So, well, yeah. But but the character looks like a prosthetic, like the poor, it's Doug Spence, right? I'm not making a mistake here. I
Oh,
don't know if we've ever really seen him as himself or what his face really looks like. He's always in makeup of some kind, so I can only imagine this very elaborate, awesome makeup on this character. It seems, and so I wonder how long takes him to. maybe
oof.
he's maybe he's only hoping his character lives for one season, and so he wouldn't have to do that for like ever. Um, I don't know that we. I think we're done.
We're done.
We're done, right?
We're
All right.
done.
I'm gonna say goodbye, doctor. So
Okay, hold on. Sarek's gonna. Oh,
thank
his arm
you.
doesn't
Oh,
go
he's
up.
already doing it. That's
There
awesome.
we go, Sarek. And I wish you long life and all
Live
that.
long and prosper,
Live long and prosper.
and peace in our time.
All right.